Learn real English, real conversations, real fast only here at English Podcast Station. Let's get started.
You know that little voice inside your head when you're about to speak English?
Uh-huh.
The one that whispers, what if I get it wrong?
Yeah, that one.
It's a feeling so many learners share. And honestly, it can be really discouraging.
It really can. You might even feel like, you want to avoid speaking altogether just to sidestep those potential errors.
Right.
But based on the articles you shared with us, the ones looking at language acquisition research and those interviews with polyglots, a really clear picture starts to emerge.
Yeah.
It basically turns that whole fear thing on its head.
Absolutely. Today, in our deep dive, and this is tailored just for you, drawing right from those fascinating sources you gave us, we're uncovering a powerful truth.
Which is?
Your mistakes aren't obstacles. They're actually like the stepping stones to English mastery. Think of it like this. Mistakes don't break your English. They build it.
That's a great way to put it. Our mission here is to explore exactly why those errors are so crucial. We'll look at some of the common patterns that pop up in beginner mistakes.
Things we saw in those forum discussions you sent over.
Exactly those. And we'll pull out some really practical strategies from the expert interviews for turning those missteps into genuine learning and, rock solid confidence.
So get ready to maybe flip your perspective a little.
Yeah.
We're about to delve into the evidence from your sources that shows why embracing those oops moments is actually the most effective way to become a confident, fluent English speaker.
Okay, let's start with that fundamental shift then. Why, according to the research you shared, are mistakes actually a positive thing, a necessary part of learning English?
Well, one of the first things that really jumped out from the linguistic studies you sent was this idea that making a mistake is like actual proof that you're actively engaging with the language.
Right, you're doing something.
Exactly. You're not just passively soaking it up, you're putting it into practice. I mean, think about what happens when babies learn to talk. Several of the people you interviewed mentioned this.
Oh yeah, the baby analogy.
They make countless errors, right? They experiment with sounds and nobody criticizes them. They just keep trying. And eventually they get it right. It's kind of the same principle for us learning English.
Exactly. And from a brain science perspective, like some of the cognitive science articles you shared pointed out, when you make a mistake and then you correct it, your brain is actually doing some really important work.
Like strengthening connections.
Precisely. It's strengthening the neural pathways for the correct form and sort of pruning away the incorrect ones. This active process, this trial and error, it's way more effective for long-term memory and understanding than just, memorizing rules from a book.
That makes so much sense. It's like if you never try something new or push the edges of what you already know, you're basically just staying in your comfort zone.
Which feels safe.
Yeah, feels safe, but doesn't really lead to growth, does it? One of the experts you quoted even said that not making mistakes might actually be a sign that you're not challenging yourself enough.
That's a really key insight. It's when you try to say something a bit more complex, something you're maybe not 100% sure about. That's where the real learning happens, even if it comes out a bit wrong at first.
That willingness to just try.
Yeah, that willingness to experiment is just crucial.
And let's not forget the feedback that mistakes give you. It's incredibly valuable.
No, absolutely.
Whether it's someone gently correcting you or even just that little internal feeling when you realize, that didn't sound quite right. That awareness is powerful for learning. The interviews you shared really emphasized paying attention to that.
Totally. That moment of self-correction or getting good feedback, it helps you pinpoint exactly where your understanding might be a bit shaky.
Right.
It lets you focus your learning effort right where it's needed most. One of the research papers you sent actually called Errors, Learning Opportunities in Disguise.
I like that. Learning opportunities in disguise. So if we reframe it, making mistakes isn't a step back. It's actually a jump forward. You're learning through direct experience. And you know what they say, experience is often the best teacher.
Or at least the most memorable one. And ultimately, fluency isn't about reaching some kind of mythical perfection. The successful language learners you researched, they all highlighted that fluency is more about the courage to communicate effectively.
Even with some bumps along the road.
Exactly. Even if it involves making some errors. Bravery in speaking builds fluency, not flawless grammar from day one.
Okay, so based on all this, it's clear mistakes are definitely not something to be, ashamed of. They're part of the deal.
A necessary part.
But looking at some of those forum discussions you shared, there do seem to be some common areas where beginners often, stumble. Maybe recognizing these can help people feel less alone.
Yes, definitely. And identifying these common patterns can also help you target your practice more effectively. One very, very frequent area is verb tense.
Ah, yes.
We saw quite a few examples in the forum, learners saying things like, yesterday I go to the park.
Right, instead of
Yesterday I went to the park. It's especially common with those irregular verbs, the ones like go that don't just add a.
like eat becoming ate, see becoming saw.
All those.
And a really practical tip, which came up in your research from successful learners, is maybe just making a list of these.
Yeah, making a list and actively practicing them, using them in different sentences, that repetition really helps lock them in.
Okay, what else? Prepositions came up too.
Yeah, prepositions, yeah. We saw a few examples like, I'm good in English.
When it should be.
I'm good at English. Prepositions like at, in, at, on, they can be really tricky.
They don't always translate directly, do they?
Not at all. Their usage can seem a bit random sometimes, as lots of the resources you looked at suggest just getting lots of exposure, reading, listening, that's really key for getting a feel for prepositions.
Okay, here's another one that popped up quite a bit in the forums. He don't like pizza.
Ah, the third person singular is.
Exactly. Remember, for he, she, it, we usually need that S, or we use doesn't, so it should be.
He doesn't like pizza. It's all about that subject-verb agreement.
And a similar one is, she have a dog.
Right, instead of she has a dog. That little "es" on third-person singular verbs is a common sticking point. Your forum examples showed that clearly.
Okay, what about pronunciation? That came up too.
Yeah, pronunciation's a big one. Words like vegetable.
Oh, yeah. How should that sound?
Well, in English, it's generally more like vegetable, kind of squashed together.
Right, not every syllable super clear.
Exactly. And another one, comfortable, often comes out closer to comfortable.
Comfortable, okay.
English sometimes likes to drop or soften sounds,
So listening is key here.
Absolutely. Like many of the audio and video resources you shared emphasize, actively listening to native speakers, paying attention to how they say things, that's invaluable for improving your own pronunciation.
Good tip. Okay, one last common mistake we noticed in your materials was direct translation issues.
Ah, yes. Like with age.
Exactly. Someone might say, I have 20 years, because that's how you say it in their language.
Right. But the standard English way is,
I'm 20 years old. Or just, I'm 20.
that's a perfect example of why focusing on learning common English phrases and expressions as chunks, like whole units.
Rather than word for word.
Exactly. Rather than trying to translate word for word can really help you avoid those kinds of errors. But the main thing to remember is these are all incredibly normal mistakes.
Everyone makes them starting out.
Totally. The crucial thing is just becoming aware of them and, keep learning.
Just listing mistakes like this can feel a bit dry, like a grammar lesson.
Yeah, a bit academic.
But the truth is, sometimes mistakes can lead to some pretty funny situations. And honestly, when you can laugh about your errors, they often become even more memorable, don't they?
Oh, definitely. Did any funny stories jump out from the research you looked at?
Well, there was one learner who talked about trying to say they were bored in a class.
Okay.
But instead, they said they were boring.
Oh.
Haha, big difference.
Right. It led to a bit of confusion, but they definitely learned the difference between how you feel and something that makes others feel bored.
That's a classic. It really shows how one little sound or one letter can completely change the meaning.
Totally. And I remember reading in one of those forum threads you sent, someone meant to say they loved watching cartoons.
Cartoons, okay.
But they actually said cottons.
Cottons, like the fabric.
Exactly. Imagine the confusion. You love watching cotton.
That's great. And yeah, those kinds of mix-ups, while maybe embarrassing for a second, they really do stick in your memory, don't they?
They really do.
There was another story about someone trying to say they cooked for their husband.
Okay, cooked for?
But they accidentally missed the for and said they cooked their husband.
Oh my goodness, no.
Yeah, a tiny little preposition making a huge and slightly alarming difference.
Wow. Those kinds of stories really do bring home the importance of those little words like prepositions. And you're right, when you have a good laugh about a mistake, You remember it.
You're much less likely to forget the correction. It becomes this memorable learning moment, much more than just reading a rule in a book ever could.
Precisely. So yeah, while we absolutely want to learn from our mistakes, it's also important not to take ourselves too seriously all the time. A little bit of humor can really help the process along.
Okay, so we've established why mistakes are actually valuable, and we've pointed out some common ones, and even had a laugh about them. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty. Based on the practical advice from your sources, what are some real concrete steps people can take to actually learn and grow from the mistakes they inevitably make?
Right, the how-to. Well, the very first step, and this was emphasized again and again in the expert interviews you shared, is basically to cultivate awareness. Mindfulness, almost.
Just noticing.
Yeah. When you say something that doesn't sound quite right, or, importantly, when someone offers you a correction, don't just gloss over it. Take a moment. Register it. Notice the gap.
Okay, don't ignore it. And building on that awareness, several of the language learning guides you sent us strongly recommended keeping some kind of mistake journal.
Yes, a mistake journal. It sounds simple, but it's effective. Whenever you make an error or realize one, jot down what you said.
The wrong version.
Right. Then write down the correct version. And crucially, try to understand why your first attempt was wrong. Was it tense? Preposition? Pronunciation?
And then what? Just keep writing them down.
Well, the key is reviewing it. Reviewing that journal regularly, maybe just for a few minutes each week, can be incredibly powerful. As one of the learning methodology articles you included pointed out, this helps you spot recurring patterns.
So you see, you keep making the same kind of mistake.
Exactly. Maybe it's always past tense verbs, or maybe it's that at versus in preposition thing. Once you recognize those patterns, you can then focus your practice much more strategically.
That makes sense. Targeted practice.
Another really effective technique, highlighted by many of the polyglots you researched, is to actively repeat corrections out loud.
Say it right.
Yeah, don't just passively hear the correct sentence. Make a conscious effort to say it yourself, multiple times even. This helps build the correct, sort of, muscle memory in your speech.
Like drilling it, but in a useful way.
Kind of. And this next one is crucial. Don't be afraid to ask questions when someone corrects you.
Instead of just nodding.
Right. Instead of just nodding and moving on, try to understand the reasoning. Politely ask, why is that wrong? Or, could you explain that? As one of the language teachers you interviewed explained, really understanding the why behind the correction significantly improves your retention.
So you don't just keep making the same mistake out of confusion.
Exactly. It helps you avoid similar mistakes down the road.
Absolutely. Curiosity is definitely your friend here. And what about correcting yourself?
Yes. Try to cultivate the habit of self-correction. When you catch yourself making an error, maybe mid-sentence, stop, acknowledge it, even just mentally, and then correct yourself out loud.
Like she doesn't like coffee.
Perfect example. That kind of self-monitoring is a huge step forward. It shows you're actively engaging and developing that internal sense of what sounds right in English.
Right, finally.
Finally, make a deliberate effort to practice the corrected language in new situations. Don't just memorize the correction in isolation. Try to use that new word or grammar structure in different sentences, different conversations.
Really integrate it. Make it stick.
Exactly. Make it part of your active language toolkit.
Okay, good tips. So remember, as one of the motivational speakers you quoted put it, something like, don't view mistakes as roadblocks.
See them as signposts.
Right. Signposts guiding you towards fluency. Learn it, say it, write it, use it.
Now, let's maybe have a bit of a heart-to-heart about mindset, because learning English, as all your sources make really clear, it's a journey. It takes time, it takes dedication, and yes, it takes a good number of mistakes.
It really does. But that's honestly how progress happens, right? In pretty much anything we learn.
Absolutely. It's easy to look at fluent English speakers and think, oh, they were just naturally gifted.
Or it was easy for them.
Right. But the reality, as highlighted in those interviews with successful learners you shared, is that they put in the effort. They definitely navigated their share of errors along the way. The key difference.
They didn't give up.
Exactly. They didn't let those mistakes stop them. They kept going.
They often had what psychologists call a growth mindset, didn't they? That came up in some of the articles.
Yes, the growth mindset. It's the belief that your abilities, your intelligence, they aren't fixed. They can be developed through dedication and hard work.
So you're not just bad at English.
Right. You're not stuck. You're constantly learning. You're evolving. That concept was definitely present in several of the psychology-based articles you looked at.
So the next time you make a mistake, maybe try to consciously reframe that inner voice.
No, so.
Well, instead of thinking, ugh, I'm so bad at English, maybe try telling yourself, okay, I'm still learning. Or even better, cool, I made a mistake, which means I just found something I can improve on.
That subtle shift in perspective, it can have a really profound impact, both on your motivation and just your overall enjoyment of the learning process.
Yeah, it helps you see challenges as opportunities for growth, not just signs of failure.
And remember, even some of the native English speaker blogs you looked at pointed this out. Native speakers make mistakes too.
That's so true. We mess up words, we forget grammar rules sometimes, we mispronounce things.
All time. So if native speakers aren't perfect, it's certainly okay. In fact, it's completely expected for you as a learner to make mistakes.
You're doing something really brave, learning a new language. Every single error is actually a step forward. Just keep going.
Okay, so thinking practically again. What about when a mistake actually happens, like right in the middle of a conversation? What can you do in that immediate moment?
That's a really important point. What do you do right then? First and foremost, based on the advice, try not to panic.
Easier said than done sometimes.
True, but try. Pause, take a breath. It's genuinely okay. Mistakes are just a normal part of talking, especially when you're learning. There's really no need to feel super embarrassed.
Right. Stay calm. Tip number 2, if the mistake happens to be kind of funny.
Like cooking your husband.
Maybe not that one, but yeah, if it's humorous, allow yourself to laugh about it. Some of the communication psychology resources you shared suggest laughter can actually diffuse tension.
And help you remember the correction better.
Exactly. Tip number 3, try to immediately self-correct if you realize it and you can.
Like we talked about before.
Yeah. If you say, I go to the shop yesterday, quickly follow it up with, oops, I went to the shop yesterday.
Right.
Reinforcing the correct form right away can be really effective.
Makes sense. What's next?
Number 4, don't hesitate to ask for clarification or help if you need it. If you're unsure why something you said was wrong, it's okay to politely ask the person you're talking to.
Like, oh, should I have said it differently?
Yeah, or could you explain why that's not in? Understanding the reason really helps you avoid making the same mistake over and over.
Okay. Tip 5.
Tip 5 is about reinforcement. Try to mentally note the correction and then consciously practice using the correct form in a similar situation as soon as you can. It helps solidify that new understanding.
So you don't just forget it 2 minutes later.
Pretty much. And as a follow-up, maybe later on, consider recording yourself speaking English sometimes.
Listening back.
Yeah, listening back. This can help you catch mistakes you might not even have been aware you were making in the moment. That self-feedback is incredibly valuable, as several of the independent learning guides you reviewed emphasized.
Good idea. And finally,
remember to acknowledge and maybe even celebrate your progress. Don't just focus on the errors. Look back occasionally and see how far you've actually come.
right. There will definitely be things you struggled with months ago that feel easier now.
Absolutely. Recognize that growth. It's important for motivation.
Yeah, definitely. Developing the ability to handle mistakes well, it's like a skill in itself, isn't it?
It really is. And the more you practice these immediate actions, staying calm, laughing it off, correcting, asking, practicing, the more confident and resilient you'll become.
So next time you stumble,
Just take a breath, smile, fix it if you can, and keep the conversation going.
Okay, so as we start to wrap up this deep dive, let's circle back to our core message, which really shines through from all the valuable insights in the materials you shared.
Which is?
Mistakes are not the enemy in your English learning journey. They're not something to fear or avoid.
No, quite the opposite. They are an intrinsic, essential part of the process. They are truly the building blocks
The stepping stones.
that your fluency will be built upon.
Exactly. So embrace those moments. When you realize you've made an error, don't shrink away. See it as information.
Learn from each one,
Yeah.
definitely. And just keep putting yourself out there, keep trying to communicate.
And be patient with yourself, right? Be kind to yourself throughout this journey. Don't let the fear of making mistakes paralyze you or hold you back from actually speaking.
Use them. Use them as that invaluable feedback to guide your improvement and just keep practicing consistently. You absolutely have the capacity to achieve your English goals.
We've seen the evidence in the research and stories you brought us, and yeah, we really believe in you.
We really do. And thanks again for sharing such insightful resources with us for this discussion.
So go out there.
Keep making those mistakes.
Yeah.
And keep growing.